Hi, and thank you for watching. This is Andrew Moy with Tight Lines Fly Fishing in Parsippany, New Jersey. Today we're going to be tying an Isonychia. This is going to be a Rene Harrop pattern, just how I tie it, give you some of my techniques. It's a very simple fly, and this fly has been working extremely well for me recently. So I'm tying on a 102Y Tiemco in a size 15. We're in the late season now. It's September. Isonychias are one of my favorite hatches because it is probably the most predominant bug, well, besides blue winged olives, one of the most predominant bugs on the system here on the Delaware. And the fish love them, and they're big, and they hatch almost all year long, from the end of May or early June through almost basically into October. So it's a great fly. So I'm taking a dun neck, and I've got my spade hackles on the side of the neck. Now, a lot of today's hackles are bred with smaller hackles. Sometimes you don't get these longer spade hackles, but I've stripped off some of the bottom of the feather here so I can quickly access how many barbs I want. And I'm just going to take a clump of about 3, 4, 5 barbs, depending on, could be more if you want it more dense, if you're fishing in faster water. So, tie your fly appropriate to the water you're fishing. So I'm going to just tie in a little tail of those hackles, and I'm going to put one wrap underneath them just to kind of get them to stand up a little bit, and that'll help keep the tails from fouling. And then I'm just going to wrap up over that just to keep the body thickness uniform, because we're going to be using a quill. If you notice, I'm tying with my scissors in my hand. This is a great way to do it. You just put it on your ring finger, cradle it in your hand, and that way you don't have to put them up and down. It saves you some time. So if you notice where I left my thread there, I'm about a hook eye back from the hook eye. So one hook eye length from the hook eye. And I'm just going to grab two CDC feathers. And I'm just looking for fairly clean feathers. You want something from like a medium dun to a dark dun. These are kind of lightish medium. And I'm just cupping them together, lining the tips up, and I'm going to clean them up. I'm just going to strip them back. Okay. And we want to strip it back. You want to leave it a little longer than you actually want the wing. We're going to tuck a little bit of that underneath, and it should actually be this way. So these tips are going to get tied in forward, and real simple. We're just going to put it, and we're tying on a 15. We want this wing to be a little oversized. So if it's a 15, you're tying this like a 14 size, for example, just like one size bigger. And I know hooks are normally, 12, 14, 16, but this 15 is kind of in between, obviously a 14 and a 16. So I'm just standing that up, tying it in flat, and I'm just cutting my CDC stems where the thorax is going to be. And I'm coming back to my tail, and I'm going to use a biot. And there's a couple shades of kind of a Isonychia color, maroon type color. And Isonychias come in all different shades. I mean, some of them are even like an olive body or like an eggplant color. So I'm going to use some of the more recent ones that were small or a little bit darker in the back, and they're a little lighter in the front. So I'm going to use one of these maroon ones. It's a little darker. So I took one quill out, and I'm taking it from the long side rather than the short, wide side. These are longer and thinner. I'm going to trim just a little bit off, and I'm going to tie it in. Now, these should be glued once they're tied in and wrapped, because they have a tendency, after you catch a fish or two, to break. So you could put a little layer of Zap-A-Gap or something on there before you wrap it. But what I like to do when I wrap this is I trap it. Come around and trap it. And if you put glue first, you're going to stick to it. So come around and trap it. Come around and trap it. Okay? And that way, if it slips out of your hand, you don't lose it. That's a good way to do it. And you're going to just wrap that up to your thorax section. Maybe one more turn. Okay. And then you could hit that with glue at the end. You could hit it with glue now. I'm not going to hit it with glue now because I want to continue. If I hit it with glue now, I'll have to wait for a minute or two. So I'm just going to select now a hackle And I want this to be basically appropriate for the hook, or maybe a little bit bigger, to make the fly kind of sit back a little bit. So I want a little bit of a good size hackle. And I'm gonna strip that where the web starts to dissipate, the web being that center V there, where that starts to be 1/3 or less or so of the barb is where you want to strip that. I'll cut that. I'll leave about 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to tie that in with the cup. You can do it back or forward, doesn't really matter. If you do it forward, it'll make the fly sit back even more. So I'm going to do the cup forward on this one. Okay, and I'm locking that into my thorax section. And I'm going to take a Nature Spirit natural dubbing and rusty spinner. This is like kind of a light color, and some of these bugs have had a little bit of a light thorax, I've been noticing. So, okay, just a little bit, not a lot. And you notice when I use the dubbing, very sparse amounts. Don't put a lot. But I want to, and notice I didn't make that dubbing super tight, sort of loose. Okay, and now we're going to wrap this. We're going to do maybe 3 or 4 turns, not too heavy. Unless you're fishing in real fast water, then you want to make it a little heavier. So I'm going to put 3 turns. And then watch how I do this. I'm going to just, because that wing's in the way, I'm going to just lift the thread and trap the hackle, and then pull the wing back to continue around. Okay. And then I want to show you kind of how this fly is going to ride. So pretty simple fly to tie. If this fly has been deadly, and I'll show you why it's deadly and kind of how this sets on the water. And it's very easy to see. Well, it's a good sized fly, but also because that wing is forward, I'm going to cut a V out of that hackle, okay? And that's going to make the legs stick out to the side. But that hackle will, that CDC wing will stick straight up in the air, and the body hangs down in the water. And when it's coming at the fish like that, it really helps disguise that hook, because that hook is angled forward. So rather than like this, where the fish can see the hook, it's hanging more like that. And it's beautiful. It's a great fly, and it's been working really well for me. If you have any questions, give Tight Lines a call. Thanks for watching.